Hey guys, today I want to talk a little bit about the Canon EOS M50 Mark II release. This Canon camera has gotten flamed up and down on YouTube, saying that it's nothing more than a firmware upgrade, and how dare Canon do this. Let's take a closer look. Now this is a sub $600 mirrorless APS-C camera by Canon. And let's take a look at this camera, the Mark II versus the Mark I. Let's go back here and compare these cameras. As you can see, look at the price point. The Mark I, the original on the left, is $579, and the Mark II is $599. So we're talking $20 difference here. And Canon does this a lot. They did this especially on the consumer grade cameras, the Canon Rebel series, the T2, T3, T4, T5, and so on. They would do a very, very small upgrade, if any upgrade, replace the SKU at its interval. I don't know if it was like a year, year and a half. It's basically the same camera, and it's got a new number, and it's their refresh version. This camera, as people are saying, it looks just like a firmware upgrade. It's got the same body, as you can see. No changes, no improvements there. All of the specs are pretty much the same. I know people are looking for a non-crop 4K. This camera will do like a 1.6 crop. The autofocus was horrific. It didn't have their famous dual pixel autofocus in 4K. It's essentially a 1080 camera that can do decent stills. I had the Mark I version, and I took that on vacation with me, and I left my Fuji at home. Now, the output of the camera was just fine. Good video, good still photos. I just cannot warm up to the engagement or the usability and the lack of manual controls on the camera and the shutter sound and things like that. Would I recommend the M50, the Mark I, or the Mark II? No, I just think there's better cameras for that price point, or just one to a couple $100 more. But am I pissed at Canon for coming out with a Mark II, which is basically the same camera? A little bit. I'm not like furious like some of these YouTubers that are expecting more out of Canon. It's nothing new. Canon's been doing this for the last probably 10 years. So I'm not shocked. I'm not surprised. At least on the consumer line cameras, it doesn't surprise me at all. For $20, I wish they would have just pushed out a firmware upgrade. I don't have my M50 version 1 anymore. But one thing to say about Canon cameras is I got my money out of it. I bought that camera new off of eBay, and I sold it like a few months later, and I got almost every penny out of my camera. So one of the things good that people know that there's not much of a difference, and it holds their value because people still want the old one. I know that sounds stupid as hell to some people, but if they would have come out with a Canon EOS M50 Mark II that had no crop 4K, and let me see, what's the other thing? A new sensor, a sensor that gives you better low light. The Mark I would be basically worthless, but it's not. If you look down the resale value, it's going to hold its value. And Canon, like it or hate it, that's one of the advantages that it gives you. It's the user experience as far as keep it simple, stupid. Now this camera, the problem I had with a lack of manual controls because it's a entry point camera, but they hold the resale value. It'll get the job done as long as you're not looking for too much out of it. A lot of people were wanting IBIS, and they wanted a new sensor and all this other stuff. It's like, for a sub $600 camera, why would they offer that in the M50, their entry point, their basic camera, when they didn't put it in some of their higher line of the APS-C cameras and the M-class line? So that's just, false expectations. I mean, you guys are smoking crack if you think they're going to come out with that, those options and their entry point camera. It's just, I know people are loving the M50 for video use, and if you're shooting 1080, it's a great camera. For 1080 video use. I'm not knocking it for that. It's the stills aspect where I think the experience was a very short, fell short of my expectations. So that's my take on the Canon M50. It is a firmware upgrade, and it's too bad that they just didn't push out a firmware upgrade and made all the Mark I people happy. That's unfortunately just what Canon does. And but they kept the price basically the same, and they're just revising the SKUs. So they're keeping it a little current, small incremental improvements. But for you current M50 owners out there, the bright side is your resale value. It's not going to tank like the Fujis, and I shoot Fuji, but my X-T2, man, when they came out with the X-T3, it plummeted. It went from a decent resale value to like bottom floor shit. So Canon doesn't do that. They hold their value, and that is one of the advantages of, if you want to call it less advanced technology or whatever you want to say. But that's my take, guys. I'm not mad at them for them. I'm not expecting more. I would like to see more from Canon, but I wasn't expecting more. So the M50, there it is, guys. Please, if you guys haven't subscribed, I'm trying to boost my channel a little bit, trying to make a little bit more videos. So if you want to support my channel, give it a like, give it a subscribe. Appreciate it. Take care. Thanks. Bye.